what we're going to be doing today is continuing on from sort of part one 2 weeks ago, and part two will, and I'll get rid of this and we'll start it right here. Part two will just kind of pick up from there. So what we want to do is briefly, and I think also for a couple of you who might not have been here, I'm going to very briefly go through some of these steps, and then we'll move on and spend the rest of the time on the other stuff. Basically, what we did last week is talk about how we can develop a real process to make decisions when you're opening up a new line of business, a new store, or a brand new startup business. And what this does is this kind of helps you walk through it. So first you need to have a discussion about the motivation of why you're going to go into business, and then we have a group of things here on identifying the market niche. And we've talked about that several times, but we went into a couple of a little bit deeper into how you go about that. And if in fact you feel as though you have identified a market niche, then you want to do what we call a quick dollar feasibility. And that's a series of 3 or 4 steps, looking at capital investment, looking at pricing and expenses by putting estimates together and forecasting, and then looking at your personal situation to see if it's going to generate what you need. Anytime this doesn't work, you go back and you start over, and you start with new numbers and try and rebuild it until you have satisfied all 3 of these. Then you go up to market acceptance. And then when we go to market acceptance, it takes us into market research. And this is what we're going to talk about today, is how do you really verify? So you've gone through, but before I do that, we're going to put through a couple of other slides. Here we talked about the kinds of businesses that are good to start today, and the kinds of attributes that I think are going to be important for brand new small businesses to really deal with the kinds of things we have in California. If you're already in business, then that doesn't necessarily apply. Then we talked a little bit about positioning and the several things in a brand new business that you want to consider. Next, we talked about the micro niche, a very small niche that you want your business to be in, and why. This happens not because it just seems like it's my good idea, but there's a lot of evidence that shows that general businesses that are small don't do well. They have to be very, very niche oriented. And the more niche oriented they are, given that the market's big enough to support the business, the better their profit can be, and some of the reasons for how to go about that. So I'm going to skip past that then and go into the second phase. But we're assuming you've gone through the marketing positioning, you think you've got the right stuff. And now the question is, can you really verify what you think you've been doing? So if you're thinking that you need to buy some expensive new equipment, or if you're thinking you need, say, to open that new, say, restaurant or in another location, what are the things that you want to do in order to be able to verify that the market exists so that you can be successful? A lot of entrepreneurs just do this based on gut feel. Some of them are successful at it. Most are not. And so the good ones obviously can be and can make good decisions over and over again, but that's really rare. And we know from some of our previous discussions that just a small number of businesses make it past 5 years, like 20% or less, and the rest of them go broke. So there's a lot to it. And these are the kinds of things that if you go through these steps, you'll have a better opportunity for success. And I've found that to be true really in my whole practice. So this is kind of a long, complex looking thing and boring, but we're going to switch back and forth, and we're going to actually take you through some of these things so you can see in a like an almost real-time fashion how this stuff can work for you. So first of all, you take a look at the general market. You've identified that might be restaurants. And then you want to try and identify more specific niches. So you want to look up data in government records and in direct mail databases. So two ways that I like to do that. The first one is to look at county business patterns. So what county business patterns does for you is give you a government census-based kind of data set. This happens to be the U.S. Census Bureau, and these are called county business patterns. Now, the ones, this is a brief one, but you can drill into these and you can see that they have a coding system called the NAICS code. That used to be the SIC code, Standard Industrial Code. This is the North American industrial code system. And so they have a system where the major industry is 2 digits long, and then they break into about 6 or 8 more digits. So you can see that they've got agriculture, mining, utilities, construction, manufacturing, et cetera. Retail trade is one of them. I think restaurants are in here. And we're going to focus a little bit on restaurants today because Edgar Martin is really specializing in doing Mexican restaurant business, and Edgar, I understand that's your business too. So this will work out nicely. Transportation and warehousing, information, and it was sort of like business services, et cetera. Finance and insurance, real estate, professional scientific. So you can see, and you read down through the other stuff, there are quite a few basic industries. And then when you click in under retail trade, for instance, you might, you break that into department stores, women's stores, men's stores, children's stores, shoe stores. So it'll break it down to that level. It'll look at, say, the general category of hardware stores, the big box hardware and lumber stores like Lowe's and Home Depot. And then it would continue to break into all of these little teeny kinds of retail operations that most of us would even think about, hobby stores, very specialized niches, and then there's usually another break to that. So you can get a lot of information on an industry this way. Now you can see here that the information that they're giving you is the number of establishments, and so that's valuable, and then what their payroll is. So that doesn't help us in marketing a whole lot. It might be just interesting to see how big some industries are compared to others, like manufacturing sticks out at, that's a really big number, yet the retail trade is bigger than that yet. Then they have the actual payroll in dollars. And the interesting thing there is that the retail is only 114, I suppose that's billion, and compared to manufacturing of 191. So despite the fact that it's smaller in terms of employees, its payroll is way higher because manufacturing jobs pay better. So when you click into this, you can get more and more and more detail. And then you can click in to look at it geographically. So rather than do that though, I thought we'd switch over and show you the other system. So the next one is to take a look at direct mail databases. The one I like to use is Info USA, and that can be very helpful to understand. So what I've done is, let's see, did I leave this open? I thought I would show it to you if I still have it open. Yes. So here's what it looks like. Basically, you click into lists, US businesses, and then you can start doing your search. And you can see that you search on the industry, which we just talked about, geography, type, size of business, dollars or employees, and a few other selections like home office, headquarters, that sort of thing. And then so you take all that criteria and then you can update the count. So when you go through, you start selecting these things. And on each one of these, you just, select, and then you can drill in a little bit and take a look at some of these general things like we just mentioned. And then you can go eating and drinking places, and then we can click in on that. And so you can see that we can get some detail. So what I've done is gone through and downloaded their data on Mexican restaurants. So this should be fun having two of you are directly related to Mexican restaurants. So what we did is we took a look at all Mexican restaurants by size, by sales volume in this particular case, for all of the cities in San Bernardino County. And no, San Bernardino and Riverside County. So it looked at two of them. And so I don't know, you might think that there are a lot or not a lot. Well, let's just have a guess. Who would like to guess how many restaurants, Mexican restaurants, there are in the two counties?
A lot. I don't know. That's my guess. My guess is a lot.
200, 250.
Okay.
Like
And
100.
anybody else have a guess? Throw out a number.
A lot. Is that a number?
100.
100. Oh, Christian, come on.
I say 2,000. I'm gonna go big.
Nah, just kidding. Yeah, probably like
Okay.
around six or 700.
Oh, that's a good guess. Here we go. And the number is 1,080.
I mean 1,000. That's what I meant.
No, but look at the sizes. This first column is less than $500,000 in business. That's 587. So if you said, well, we're selling something that requires a little bit more volume, and then you shift over, okay, you got $500,000 to $1 million, over $1 million, now you're down to 330, about 360 restaurants.
Wow.
So you kind of go, okay, well, how big is the market? And here's how the distribution looks if you do a chart. And so all I did was just graph this thing. And you can kind of see here that Riverside and San Bernardino are the two big towns. And you might expect, or you might not expect, that Etiwanda would be the next one. I can hardly believe.
So now we know where we need to go.
Those are really little ones. See, they don't have, they're more normal in the next tier. This is by, I can't really rotate this particular one, but so the small ones are in the front and the big ones are in the back, and you can see there's hardly any big ones. I mean, this is a market where if you're doing over $1 million in a restaurant, you're doing a really good job. And if you're doing from $2.5 million up, you're in the top 3%. So that gives you a sense of, if you're in the restaurant business, that gives you a sense of where you are in terms of the overall competitive landscape and mix for Mexican restaurants specifically. That tells you a few things about the market. And they could tell you a lot of things. I'm not an expert in Mexican restaurants, but it may have something to do, obviously, walk up versus sit down. It has something to do with that. It might have to do with if it's a little bit higher level dining versus casual dining. That so that may tell you a lot. If you knew who these people were, these 12, 17, 19, 20 restaurants. If you knew those 20 restaurants, you could go look at them and pretty quickly figure out who they were and what they were doing that was the same, right?
It's probably the Torito, probably one of them, and then maybe
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe what do you call it? El Espinosa? No, no, what's that? The one in Mountain?
El pescador.
El Pescador probably is in there somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that kind of gives you the start. And then what do you do with it? Well, then the next thing is, well, you just simply come up here and you say, okay, for Mexican restaurants, and I'm going to say over 1 million. And that's because now here's more how Edgar Martin would look at it. And that is that you'd say, okay, if my market is 1 million and up, then that's 350. Now the question is, what's my penetration in terms of closes? Could you get 5% of all of them? And that's 17 restaurants. Could you get 10% of them? Well, now that's 35. And so it makes it really kind of straightforward at this point to be able to say, well, okay, all I have to do is extrapolate my revenue per restaurant, and I can figure out approximately how my business can grow. And then the next step is after you take a look. Let's see, is that one of my steps over here? So yeah, we want to build the market penetration estimates, which we did. And then what we want to do is take a look at break-even analysis. We're not going to cover that because we've done that 2 or 3 times recently. Edgar Munoz, if you are interested in that, you can go onto our Microgiants channel and you can find the show on break-even analysis. So it's available. Our Zoom meeting is available there. And so that's how you get to these numbers, is by saying, okay, here's the market size. And I think you'll agree that it makes a little more sense, and it gives you a lot more confidence when you've got something to grab a hold of so that you can do some forecasting that makes any sense. Because if you're just kind of going, well, I don't know, we've done okay in the past, and I guess we'll just keep going, that doesn't help you know how big you can go or how much investment you may need to make. The next step is, well, okay, how big is the total the total marketplace? So for Munoz, you want to know what percentage of the population you really have access to. And so you would do that possibly ethnically, but you may also do that based on income, just by knowing your customers. You may be able to do that based on neighborhoods. So there are several ways you can look at that. And then you take a look at the total population and you can say, okay, well, we get X number of customers per restaurant per year. And therefore that's X percentage of the total population that we think are our primary customers. Now there's a whole big segment of how you do that for the consumer. And we've done that and talked a lot about it in this group for a dairy that I'm on the board in Colorado. And we know the kinds of cars they drive, where they live, that they have 2 income families, how many children they have. We know what magazines they read, what radio stations they listen to. We know all of that. And so, that when you're in the retail business, you need to do this same exact thing, but you're doing it for consumers. But in business to business, so for Edgar Martin, if our market is restaurants, then we want to look at the businesses, and that's a business to business application. And so we're going through that. It's much more difficult to do a consumer profile than it is to do a business profile, business to business profile. So that takes us to the financial side of this. You do the break even, you update your break even that you originally did, and you see if your original assumptions make any sense. And if they do make sense, then you go, okay, now let's do a cash flow plan, and let's determine how much money we've got, how much money it's going to take, how many people we're going to have to hire, any equipment we have to buy, any trucks or et cetera, an office. When you put all that together for your expenses, and then you determine what your cash burn rate is going to be. How much cash are you going to need in order to be able to fund your activities until you run out of money? And then that helps you determine if you have to go outside and either get a loan or be able to come up with additional capital. Now, in a case like this, let's just say that we're looking at a broader area. And instead of doing 2 counties, we did all of Southern California. We're just a small percentage of the population. So it wouldn't be crazy to discover that Southern California had 8,000 Mexican restaurants. That seems reasonable to me based on what we're looking at here. So now you're saying, well, okay, 8,000 restaurants. Are they all going to be our prospects? And if they are, then you have to say, we can't, we've got plenty of market. We don't need, maybe we'd like to have 300 of them. So we don't need to have that big a market, and it's there. So that's just great. But there's another side to it. And that is, the bigger the market, the more competitors. And so you have to also think about the competitive landscape, because if the market is too big, then you're going to have people sucked into that market like a big vacuum. And people will come in to fill the market. And now if you demonstrate that you have a new product or a new business approach and you're successful, other people will emulate that. And what you do is you end up creating your own competition. So in small business, what you have to do there is that you have to actually fill the whole void. Not the 100%, but you need to be the number one in that marketplace. And so what you want to do is either restrict your market and say, nope, we're just going to stay in San Bernardino, or we're just going to say, stay in the city of San Bernardino because we're going to concentrate on that market only. Or you have to be ready to say, if we need to have this whole market, we need to have enough money to actually go get the whole market. Now, those are kinds of decisions that a lot of the tech startups have to think about, because the geography really doesn't exist. And so if you're starting up an Uber or a Instacart, which is one of those grocery delivery companies, you have to look at that a little broader and say, we have to be big enough to be able to handle all of the geography where they can find us. And in the case of Instacart, all of Southern California, all of California can find Instacart, and all of California wants to have something delivered to their home. And so they literally had to take on the whole United States at one time. Therefore, they had to have huge amounts of cash in order to be prepared to put together, writing the software is only part of it, but they had to hire people. They had to train them. They had to do who knows what kind of certification for their cars, for their insurance. Oh my gosh, who knows how detailed that would be. But you can tell that's going to cost some money. So that's why you not only look at what you need, you also look at how big the market is. So with the dairy, we have one major competitor. There used to be 2 or 3, and it's come down to just 2 competitors in the home milk delivery business. So the competition is good, the positioning is good for both companies, but now we in the last 5 years, the traditional home delivery dairy truck is not the whole competition. The competition includes Uber delivery, it includes Instacart, it includes other people, small folks just getting into business, trying to do a delivery business. It included a bread company that made their own bread and delivered it. And so, we basically are doing 80% of their business now because we're much bigger than they are. And they're providing bread for all of our customers. So the importance is, and the relevance to this comment is that the marketplace itself is finite. The number of people in that market who are interested in home, mostly milk, but home delivery of milk and juice and coffee and so forth, is a much smaller percentage of that, say 7 or 8%. In fact, it's the biggest market in the country, the Metro Denver area. And that they sell 10% of all delivered fluid milk, or 10% of all people in Denver buy their milk from a dairy delivery system. 10%. So that's big compared to all of the stores that sell milk, by the gallon in plastic jugs. So it's important to know that you have enough money to grow into that market and to be able to protect your market, and when that market, when your business will begin to fade because there's no more business to get. And then you start thinking about new product differentiation, new product development, broader markets, trying to figure out how to appeal to other consumer groups. So that's another whole discussion. So what we've done then is we've gone through this specific niche. We've looked at the break even and cash requirements again. And if we verified that, yes, this still looks like this can work, then we go into 3, which is to take a look at the direct prospect input. Now, what that really is to be able to test your product concepts. A couple ways to do that. You want to go to industry periodicals and take a look at industry web-oriented websites. And it's amazing. It's the same thing with trade associations. It's amazing how many are out there, and they're not hard to find. For the most part, you can find an industry publication that you can get online as well. They usually do cost some money. That's how they stay in business. So Christian, I don't know, you're in such a specialized industry. Do you have an industry publication or an industry association?
No, we don't.
Oh, see, that's how specialized you guys are.
You are the market, huh?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's other competitors in our market, but I want to say we're in a niche within the niche just because of the trucks that we use. The trucks that we use, none of our competitors have it in California. Yeah. So that kind of differentiates us with the competitors. But they are in our same niche. Just I want to say we're in a bit of a smaller niche than that one main niche, due to that truck and all the different things it can do that the other trucks can't do.
And so if you're the only one in California, are you planning on expanding throughout the state?
Yeah, but we're kind of on the scale of a natural growth. We're kind of not going after it as much. I mean, we can aggressively, but because of how my dad wants everything to run with the company, he wants to do it slowly, make sure that we're prepared for that next step. And being that we've went into different operations with the tankers and transportation, that's keeping us very busy. So right now, I mean, we're kind of secured within Southern California with our niche and our market, but we're still trying to take care of that transportation side of it before moving a bigger step with those ultravac specialty trucks into more upper North California and such.
Yeah, okay. And so that all makes a lot of sense to do that carefully, and there are good reasons why to grow internally as opposed to, say, go out and get a loan or outside capital. However, it does leave you vulnerable to someone taking a look at your operation and going, wow, these guys are doing well, they're growing, they're making money. Why don't we go up to Northern California and start this same business? And you start bringing in somebody big, like, what if you had a big waste company decide that they wanted to get into business? So that's just, I'm not suggesting you do that. I'm just saying that's something you should be aware of. The market is way bigger than you can handle. There's no competition. it's going to suck people into the business. And so you have to be
Mhm.
prepared for new competition. However, you
Yeah.
decide to deal with that strategically, but you need to at least think about it and know that it's there. Try and figure
Mhm.
out, well, how big is the actual market? You know, could we successfully keep everybody out of Southern California? I mean, that's a huge market by itself. And so it's not like you have to go to Northern California. But if you
Mhm.
could just protect Southern California and really remain the specialty and do all of that, then that implies something different about your market. That means that
Mhm.
all of your potential prospects need to know how to find you because they
Mhm.
may not even know that you exist. And so that's a
Exactly.
whole, yeah, that's
Yeah.
a whole kind of prospect awareness program so that you can help them understand that you can solve their problem. And as a result, you end up doing the business because there's no other place to go. And that's a perfect world. But you have to kind of think through how big of a marketing effort should that be? Could it be
Mhm.
just a website? Does that do the job? But or does it also mean that you need to capture the market so in such a grand way that you buy lots and lots of Google AdWords so that you're at the top of every conceivable search where they're looking for something like what you do,
Mhm.
so that nobody can get in front of you. And if you can dominate just on the web, likely you'll be able to dominate the whole market itself.
Yeah, that's funny because I see that our competitors do that. They are the front companies that our clients would call because they're kind of the front runners with the marketing and being in front of them through LinkedIn. LinkedIn would be our best shot because all of our
Okay.
clients are going to be there on LinkedIn. So that'll be our best way to market to LinkedIn. But yeah, mostly all of our competitors, that's where they get the business from. And what usually tends to happen is they end up being the front runners of offering the services. And what ends up happening is they usually need our specialty work still because they don't do what we do, and they sometimes they can't take care of it. Of course they give them the client promises and such, but almost all the time what ends up happening is the client ends up being unsatisfied with the work and end up coming to us for the second time, you know.
Yeah.
So if we were to be the front ones, of course, yeah, I could perfectly see how we will take over that market just overall.
Yeah, and that's an really really inexpensive way to do it, because
Hmm.
AdWords, and I don't know, we haven't really talked very much about this, but AdWords are the price is based on the bid a bidding war, and so you go in and you bid for it effectively, and so if other people are going to be willing to pay 3 cents for an ad, then all you have to do is pay 4 cents and you're on the top.
Hmm.
So 4 cents is one thing, but in some industries, the competition is so amazing, they're paying $20 per click.
Wow.
$20. Things
Wow.
like attorneys, ambulance chaser kind of attorneys, those kinds of things. It's where they make lots of money, and the competition is just fierce, and they happen to be sort of in a dog eat dog kind of world already anyway. So it just and they bid the price up on themselves, and so they're all paying this really high rate. But it shows you, see, they're going, well, we can make $100,000 in every lawsuit, so we don't care if we're spending $20 a click, because we only need one click out of 400 or 4,000 in order to be able to make money. And so
Mm.
that's the game. And so
Yeah.
in a case where the beautiful part about being alone in your niche is that you don't have people competing as much, even for AdWords. And as a
Hmm.
result, you can continue to dominate your market. And it always
Yeah.
makes more sense to dominate your own market, either geographically or because it's a hyper niche like yours. And if you can do that, you'll always make more money because you
Yeah.
don't have you don't have the pressures to lower your prices or provide more services because your
Yeah,
competitors across the street are doing that. So
One thing
good.
I found
exactly.
interesting, Ron, was that in the restaurant industry, even though it's so competitive with the words on search engine SEO, nobody really purchases or invests money into AdWords, which is another reason why I saw a niche there potentially in the near future to be potentially the organization that helps them maybe put some bits in for some keywords to show up on the top rankings in the restaurants and things like that. And
Yeah,
I've been
you're.
thinking of you guys a lot too, by the way, about that.
Yeah, no, I think you've identified that as a pretty good place. There's also some interesting niche opportunities that are happening, and we'll talk about this more as we get into real, marketing execution stuff, because we really haven't done very much of it. But as a matter of fact, I had a conference this morning with a company that sells. Well, I mean, it's a traditional TV station company. And what's happened is that because television is undergoing so many changes, and we've got YouTube going on, and that's a huge kind of a major shift in eyeballs over the last 10 years. And then we've got a lot of cable cutting going on. So people are switching to Roku and Disney Plus and other online systems. That as people cut their cables, they're watching less and less regular TV and more streaming TV. And there's a whole new channel, if you will, that is just doing advertising that is as specific as AdWords, only they're showing them on YouTube and these channels. Now the channels are totally different. YouTube is its own platform. And then these other channels tend to be getting together and bundling their stuff. But what they do is they hit demographics, which are down to very small geographic areas, and they can pretty much tell what the household is doing. And so if you have a certain kind of a customer that lives in a certain neighborhood, has a certain income, and any other attributes that you know about your customers, you can actually buy television type ads that will only be shown on streaming channels, and those are cheap. They're really cheap. It's not at all like television advertising. It's not like a radio advertising. We buy them at $120 a spot. But these ads, you're buying for 30 cents, $1, $2 a spot. And of course they calculate the viewership based on individual views, because people, they know when they're watching a certain streaming service, and they know when that ad happens, and so they can count that, and they know that that's the right person. That's totally different than what you can do on radio and regular radio and television. So those are really good ways to get into very small niches for not very much money. And they make a lot of sense for small business to utilize those things. Okay, so let's see. And then the other thing that is a good thing to do is to do surveys. Survey Monkey type surveys is a good one. And there are a couple of others too that are just fine, and they're inexpensive to do. The only problem you run in there is that if you're dealing with prospects or a potential market that you're trying to investigate, it's hard to get a mailing list, an email list that people will pay attention to. So then you have to do that other ways, and it's really hard to get people to participate. It's actually easier to set up focus groups, and focus groups are where you would invite maybe 6 or 7 of your prospective customers together, and then you would have a focus group where you ask specific questions, have discussions. Sometimes you can do product demonstrations in front of them and get feedback, so that you can have an interesting conversation about your product offerings, your branding, just a variety of things. because you can get instant feedback on a wide variety of things. So that's something that is not done by small business very often, but that can be a very, very effective. And you simply, you kind of have to lure people in. They have to get something for it. So sometimes you got to take them out to a nice dinner or something like that in order to be able to get them to do it. Or professional focus groups will actually pay people 100, 200 bucks to show up and do these things. And there are groups that are very good at doing professional focus groups if you wanted to go that direction. And so then the other number 4, Roman numeral 4, is to test your product and test it again and test it again, and to determine to do that. Sometimes you have to do a low cost offering or give things away with the idea that you get something back. So at the dairy, we frequently test products. We launch probably an average of 10 or 12 products a year, of which maybe half of those we manufacture, and then the other half are from third-party vendors. But we're able to segregate deliveries into a certain route, which are standard routes that happen over and over and over every week. So we'll make an offer to say one route that will have a couple hundred families on their houses there, and say, we would like to give you some free, say, coffee, and have you test it and just tell us what you think. And so certain number of them will say, yeah, I'll take some free coffee just to try it. And then all you have to do is answer this email. Now that's existing customers. It's easy to do with existing customers if you have their email. And so that works unbelievably. And we've been able to launch successful product after successful product because we can tell. We ask them questions like, how do you like it? What does it taste like? Is it smooth? Whatever the attributes of the product are. And then we'll say, so if you were to consider buying this, if we offer this product and we were to consider buying this product, how often would you buy it? And then you can go weekly, monthly, occasionally, et cetera. So we can actually now tell what kind of frequency we might expect to get when they're buying this week after week for these weekly deliveries. And so that really helps us a lot to figure out whether or not we're going to have success. So it's gone through a whole bunch of testing internally, tasting and testing mostly internally, and then occasionally we do branding testing, but for the most, but we don't change brands that much. But then we do a real taste test with real customers, and we get real feedback, and we can mathematically calculate our estimated sales because we simply extrapolate. We got 200 people, and all we have to do is say, okay, we got 10% of them, and so now 10% of our entire delivery group is likely to buy it, and therefore we're going to make X amount of dollars in revenue and profit we're going to make. And so literally it's a done deal before we ever launch. We don't make many mistakes. So now there's development cost here. So you can't just mess around with something. Now in a restaurant, you can say, I'm going to try something new, and you cook it up and you deliver it to 4 or 5 people, and you ask them how they like it, and if they like it, you might consider making it. That's not a very costly thing. So you can do that kind of testing all the time, and should. Yeah.
A question for you: would it be a good idea if you get a survey before they, if you have the technology before they leave your table, kind of like a review of your food before they go to Google and put the review on there, to capture almost like a survey before they actually go and talk to everybody else in the world, type of thing?
Yeah. So in others, qualify them before you ask them to leave you a 5-star review. That's a good idea. Anything you can do. Yeah, anything you can do to remind them that they should go on and give you a good review that's always good. Yeah. so those are ways to test and keep testing and make sure you don't make any mistake. And then the last way to do that is to take a look at your product and then just simply use use the internet and do a lot of searching for the same product. And you'll find that there's a lot you can do there to find, say, look at certain recipes, certain product offerings, to get an array of, say, logo and positioning ideas. What do people say about their restaurants? And is what they say about their restaurant really true when you show up at the restaurant? Because a lot of times there's a disconnect there, and people get confused because they expected one thing and they got something different. And then finally, what you've done is you're going to look at the preliminary approach that you took to your positioning, and you're just going to test that and say, okay, we thought we were going to position our company this way. Now that we've gone through and actually done the research, does that positioning still make sense? And so so you take your positioning, which should be in a positioning statement that's very clear about how you're going to position your product or your company. And then you're going to go and take a look at your competition one more time and try to identify their positioning language, how they describe what they do or what their products are. And then you also take a look and see if their call to action, what that looks like. And you write them all down together. And then you make comparisons. And then you're finally really ready to move on to the next step, which, if we come back over here, where it pulls us down here, and the next one goes into the real financial analysis. And so that's how we get through all of the market research, that in order to do sort of the basics. It's not what you learn in business school, because what you learn in business school is built for giant companies, and small businesses don't have the resources that giant companies have. So, you can't really go to very many small research firms that will do work for small business. And the reason that they can't do it is that they haven't figured out how to get around it. Now, I've spent my whole career, well, not my whole career, but since 1989, trying to figure out how to solve the problem of getting information for small businesses. And that was hard to do. The county business patterns that I mentioned earlier, I used to buy that new updated book every year, and it was sitting on my shelf, and I would thumb through it until I found the industry that I needed, and I was able to do that, manually in those days. Now it's all online, so that makes it really nice. In the old days, you could do direct mail kind of to a focused group, but not very focused. And so what would happen is that you'd call somebody on the phone and you do some business with them, maybe, and do some direct mail pieces, which is still a good media today, by the way. And then you'd kind of figure out, well, I wanted X number of names and I asked for this profile of customer, and the guy could give me more or less than that. So you can get a sense for how many there are. But, you call the guy and you ask him for estimates. Pretty soon he gets kind of tired of giving you estimates all the time because you're not buying enough lists. And so, that's not a good source for doing research if you do it a lot. And so when Info USA, which is basically a mailing company, or a mailing list company, I should say, when they went online, then that gave me the opportunity to be able to go in and do this. And eventually I became some sort of an affiliate, but I bought enough so that they gave me access to it. And so that's why I'm able to go in and get these numbers on almost anything. So those are the two primary tools that I've had to develop, and not very many people know how to use it. And so it still remains a a really good tool for small business folks to try and figure out what their market is and get a lot closer than they used to be. Now, big businesses do all of this stuff. They have teams of researchers. They buy loads of research. And I should mention that there is a lot of research available. It's just a matter of how much can you afford to pay for it. For instance, one of the, on the consumer side of things, one of the bigger firms that does that kind of research is Experian. There are about three systems where what they're doing is they're giving you lifestyle or psychographic data, and you can sample your customers and send them a list of addresses, and they will come back and tell you exactly, the ethnic makeup, the income, the cars they drive, all the stuff that I mentioned that we have. They will tell you all of that. And so you'll have a picture of your current customers, if you're already in business, that is. You'll have a picture of your current customers that will just blow your socks off. They even now today, they're cross-referencing that with all the internet data. So they're buying, data from Google and all of the other online companies that are tracking everything we do. And so they have a huge amount of knowledge and insight on what customer behavior is. And so it's when you understand their behavior, that's when you're able to better focus your marketing and advertising dollars.
It's when they know us better than we know ourselves, correct?
Yeah, no, I think they really do. This morning we were having a conversation about remarketing. Do you guys know what remarketing is online? That's you've all had it happen. That's when you go to a certain website and then you're visiting, another website. 5 minutes later, their ad pops up again. That's what they call remarketing.
It's like the pixel tracking type of thing, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. What they do is they grab your computer ID,
address.
IP, and then whenever that IP shows up again, they just serve up that particular ad. It's a real simple thing to do, and they're very inexpensive. But some research is now showing that consumers are getting quite unhappy with that, and we may have legislation to get rid of that at some point. But that's a good way to get customers to come back who've come to your website. It's a really good way to do that, particularly if you couple that with some promo of some kind, so that it doesn't feel like you're just hitting on them, but you're actually trying to give them something. So the way that you approach it is really a big part of acceptance of that kind of thing. But yeah, that's the kind of information. So hypothetically, if you could get a list of all of the people who have gone online to look up a Mexican restaurant in the last month and somehow contact those people only, wow, what a savings that would be, not to have to advertise, say, in a newspaper where you're trying to sell everybody. That focus is really a lot less expensive than general advertising. And that's what small business people have to do. They have to continually work to figure out where their customers are and how to communicate with them wherever they are and however that works. So, okay, well, that's as far as we're going to go today. We're not going to jump into the financial analysis, and I thought the details might be a little bit boring for a really, really long meeting. But do you guys have any comments or questions about what we've gone through?
Edgar, any comments? I know it's the first time over here, man. What do you think?
No, it's everything is really great information. I feel like I've learned a lot in such a little time. It's eye-opening to see how we can market now as compared to before, using all this analysis and this information.
Good. Yeah, it's the world has really changed, and it's been better and better for small business people to be able to focus on just their own customers. That's something that I've really been pushing hard for a long time, is to continually to try and give small business people tools that they can afford to use, instead of the typical guy who walks in and says, "Hey, we're gonna put you in front of 300,000 people for this radio ad." It's like, well, okay, but only 3% of them come into our restaurant, so we've wasted a lot of money on the other 297,000 people.
Yeah.
Christian, I'm trying to change that. Yeah, the coupon booth of tortas ahogadas chipalas sitting in your lunch break room now, isn't it?
Yeah.
We're gonna try
It's
to
looking
sell more.
delicious.
It's looking delicious. All right.
Yeah.
So Christian's my first test, Ron, and we threw a coupon booth on his lunch break room, and I'm going to be adding a bunch of new photos.
Yeah.
I ran in, kind of cool though, but Edgar's restaurant in there, so we'll see.
Oh, good.
We'll see how this
Oh,
works.
good. So yeah, chef meets customer here. That's great.
Yeah.
You better buy some stuff, Christian, now, man.
No, I am. Everyone's already liking it here. They like how the display of it, and just knowing that connection is there whenever they need it, instead of going on to like probably Uber Eats or the other apps that there is. They appreciate that it's right here. And I mean, like I said, it does look delicious. The way the presentation is, it makes you want to get it.
And the reinvestment part of it, we're trying to get our nonprofit start getting some of those funds, but it'd be amazing where we can reinvest it. I don't know, local communities. We're not going to make much in the beginning, but whatever we can make, if we can get more of these Ron meetings, and think it can make a big difference. So.
Yeah, cool. Well, it's a good initiative, and once you get a few more of them, it'll really be interesting to see the kind of connection that you make, because this is a really interesting small niche market, I don't know. I think it's really innovative and terrific. Yeah.
We'll see. Hopefully, test, come back, and we bring it back and say, "Hey, Ron, we got more data." I think.
Yeah. No, that's right. Yeah, keep doing it. Figure out what works. Make it better all of the time. Make it cheaper, per unit all of the time. Mm-hmm. And that's just the way to go. And then you should be able to deliver some good things for your clients. That's terrific.
Hey Ron, I had a question. Sure. Would you consider each customer or potential customer that a company may have its own niche?
Well, that's a pretty sort of deep question. The answer would be, yeah, you could, if they're that specialized that you're doing something. They've got a special kind of waste, and they're different than everybody else, and then you have to adapt to that in order to be able to do the cleanup. Then yeah, that's probably its own sub niche.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because I was thinking that.
Yeah. So one of the ways to extend your business is to say, okay, we've identified this really narrow niche that we only do this for, maybe a couple, maybe one, but then on the other hand, identify the customers that may have that same need or prospects. And then you can spread those services and just approach those other prospects and say, hey, we do this for these guys. And, would you have a need for this kind of service? And then you can grow that niche a little bit, and hopefully with new customers. But that's a great way to do it. Now, I don't know. Do you have salespeople that actually go out and talk to new customers, to prospects?
Well, we have only one sales person, and he's gotten some clients through just knocking on the doors and making cold phone calls. But most of our business has been coming from referrals, has been coming from our competitors just messing up, and as well as just our clients already looking for our types of services. So they look us up through the key terms on Google, and they end up finding our website. and they put a submission through there. But yeah, we only have one sales guy, and he does some cold calls. But my reason for my question is because we're servicing a lot of different manufacturers. We're servicing the city at times, just different types of businesses, and we're coming across car washes where that is already kind of its own niche, because I mean, our trucks can still take care of the job, but it's more different than what we're usually used to, and it's a great different smaller niche that we found. And we've gotten more and more car washes because one owner might own many car washes, and they refer us to another owner that owns more car washes.
Right.
So that's how usually we end up gaining clients. So we haven't really been aggressive on the sales or the marketing. Everything's just been referrals.
Okay. Well, so that's a terrific example of how you can extend a service that you've already got within its own niche. And so if you've got a car wash niche, then it just makes a lot of sense. Figure out how to get to more car washes. And you could do that a couple of ways. You could have your salesperson do it. I don't know, anything about your numbers, so I can't really suggest that it makes sense for a salesperson to call on an individual car wash. But the concept, though, of calling on them is good. But then you can direct mail might be useful here, and certainly if you could ever get a hold of, figure out a way to get emails of people who are maybe interested to do specific car wash kind of pieces for them. I think if you were to decide to go after car washes, you would want to figure out a very specific marketing plan on how to go about doing it. And you'd start by just going on Info USA and figuring out how many car washes there are.
Yeah, I missed that part. So it was infousa.com.
It's infousa.com, and you can sign up and just set up your own account and go in and start messing around with it and figure out how, you kind of want to figure out what the industry would be for car washes. But you can put in where that box was under industry, you can type in car washes and it'll suggest them. So usually it'll give you several industries that you would pick that would be car wash type of industries. You want to be sure not to pick the suppliers. You want to pick the actual services, the retailers. Then you can say, well, gee, we got 10 car wash customers, but there are 10,000 in Southern California. I mean, all of a sudden you're going, whoa, there's a business here. This might be a huge business. And so it might make sense for you to go to the car wash, publications and buy some ads in either on the websites of the trade organizations or their periodicals, because that's what they read. That's common, is they read industry stuff. And the people who support that are the folks who make their machines and sell them soap and rags and whatever their supplies are, things that they buy. And you'd be one more service that they may not even be aware of. And so those are some of the ways. And then another way is for you to start analyze what you're doing there, position yourself appropriately for car washes, and then write some articles that you could put on your website that you would promote through LinkedIn. And so, and you'll end up with a good search engine optimization benefits because you've spoken about something specific. And you're going to use the words that they would use. Sometimes each industry has a different word, by the way. You have to learn their industry a little bit. And you tailor articles to them so that when they're searching, they would find your article, which would lead them to your website. So,
and the article, would it be pretty much just talking about how do we service them, or what our services provide, or how we take care of the job?
You want to try and make it more newsy and less salesy. So it's just like, here's a problem. you're getting, I don't know what it would be, but I'm guessing that they're getting oil drips and gasoline drips on their concrete or something like that. And they're washing it down and they have to dispose of it, something like that. And so you could describe the problem, and then you could say, and so, here's one of the solutions is that, you have a service like ours come over and vacuum it all up, and you don't, because, they can't let that stuff run off of the property. They've got environmental impact stuff. And the more you learn about that, the more you'll be able to advise them on how to deal with that problem. And then they're going to go, yeah, these guys know how to do this. And all I have to do is pick up the phone and have them send a truck out and get it done. So that's how you kind of want to develop that whole market. If you determine you want to really get into it, then you can. And if it's big, then you can go. You know what? We can put some money towards the advertising, and by that I'm talking about marketing and writing and web development as well, not just ads. But and then you use your social media. Not to report anything that doesn't work well, but social media to announce that you have a new piece on a certain subject. So, and that's how we do it for Microgiants. Whenever we do a new video or write a piece, we just announce that here's a new piece, and it goes out on social media. And then social media, we're going to get X percentage of clicks that'll come across and take a look at it. And it takes a while to build that up. But once it gets going, it's really nice. I mean, for the plastics company, we've had really great success. We went from barely hitting sort of our manufacturing break even to being 5 months behind. And we did the whole thing by writing articles. We wrote about, I think we wrote 2 articles a month for 3 years. And
Wow.
that was enough to actually increase the targeted searches so that we are getting 3 or 4 requests for quote every day online. Every day. And these are jobs that are $10,000 to $1 million, So, I mean, it's definitely paid for the campaign, 100 times. That's the beauty about knowing how to do online marketing. But writing articles is not easy. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. And I'm thinking about you kind of have to be sensitive with like not giving information, like make sure the competitor's not checking out that information and getting some ideas and then hopping into that market, right? It was
yeah. If you fear that people are really following you to figure out what's going on, then you might not want to really make it public, and that's where use of your salesman is really beneficial. You just you pick the chains, and you can figure out which ones are the chains and which ones are individual stores. And so you just go to the big guys, find the biggest ones first. You look at them, how much volume the company does, and then you send your guy out with a specific campaign, leave a flyer or 2, and say, here's what we do, here's how we do it. The article that you write, you could just hand it to him in paper. It doesn't have to be online, and you start that way until you can build up. With the dairy, we literally, that's what we call keep your head down strategy.
Yeah.
We literally did not advertise for 20 years. 20 years. And it worked because all we did is go directly to the customers we wanted, door to door to door. It worked great because the big competitor, they could have squashed us any second that they wanted to because they were huge and we were nothing. And so now that they're huge and we're big, they can't, we've got so much cash, they can't hurt us anymore. And so we started advertising for the first time just 3 or 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, and that's exactly why I brought it up, because I remember you mentioned that. And I feel like we're in that same position that you just described.
Yeah.
There's a bigger competitor that's just humongous nationwide. And for them to find out that we're catering to this other market, but a specific way, as in the way we do it in operational wise, that's just a great trick to take care of the job. We want to be underneath the scope or off the radar of those other competitors.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Until you can build up literally enough power by building up your balance sheet, having cash in the bank, having your systems in shape, having your hiring really nailed. When you get all of that administrative stuff really, really nailed, that is when you can finally sort of go public and hire a couple of salespeople, do the advertising, capture the market. Then it'll be too late for the other guys to come in. You'll choke them out, and that's the ultimate. That's what you want to do. You want to choke them out.
I got a question for you for later today. Edgar, do you think and Ron, you think Eddie would be available to meet today, or do you want to reschedule? I know I've been really interested in trying to finding out how to.
Yeah, I was thinking today was going to work just fine.